Today's podcast is brought to you by Soul Spray. My wife and I are proud partners of this company, which we started with friends because we wanted an all-natural product that smells fresh and eliminates shoe odor for good. Visit us at soulspray.com.
Cool.
Did you hear that? Recording in progress.
I did,
yeah. Okay, it's on. Dude, well, thank you so much for coming on here and just chatting with us. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. You've been rock climbing a lot, I heard.
Yeah, I'm always rock climbing a lot, or trying to.
It's been a good start to the season, I guess.
Yeah, I'm feeling good right now. Actually, I'm feeling fit, so I'm psyched.
That's perfect because that's what we're here to talk about. and the weather's been good. Rock's dry.
Yeah, we've had it's like typical Colorado spring. It's been kind of snowy at times, and then nice days, and kind of mix of everything. So yeah, it's been good. I'm still like grinding away at this Grand Old Opry project out at the monastery. So that was kind of the motivation for the last few months of training, and now it's like getting into season where you can send it. So yeah.
Sweet. So how long does that season last for you?
Probably till like May. I'm guessing there'll be decent temps, so another like 5-6 weeks maybe. We'll see. Kind of gotta like pick your days.
Yeah,
but it's a finicky spot. Kind of depends on the wind out there.
Okay.
So,
and what about sun? Hot sun?
It gets good shade, so you can go in the morning. It's shaded till like 3, so you've got a good chunk of time.
Awesome.
You do have to get out of bed as it gets warmer, so there's that.
No problem for you. You're a father and an alpine climber. That's no big deal. And how far is that from your house? Like, what does that day look like?
It's like as the crow flies, it's only 5 miles from Estes, but it's like probably hour and a half, like door to door to get to the crag when you do the drive and the hike. So it's a little bit of a ways. Yeah, it's doable. A finicky crag. Like it's one of those things that seems like it's an easy place to project, but it's not really that easy because there's not like a ton of pitches there. So partners can be a little tricky. It's not really a very good crag unless you climb 513 or harder. There's like 112D. So, sometimes I have a hard time recruiting people.
Yeah, the 12D warm up.
Yeah,
man, I'd love to go out there one day. That's
yeah. Have you ever checked out that crag? You've never been there, huh?
No,
it's really beautiful. It's super unique. So,
and that also that crag where Tommy bolted his project last year. That's not the same crag, is it?
Yeah.
It is. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
We kind of bolted that route together.
Oh, cool.
Thinking that would be his like 9A thing.
Yeah.
Too hard. He had to move somewhere else.
What a beautiful wall that is, though. Holy crap.
Yeah, super stunning wall. Yeah, it was so impressive that Jonathan did that route in I think he did it in early September.
Yeah.
Super warm. It was like pretty amazing, really, honestly.
Wow, he has superpowers. He can kind of do that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's climbing at like an elite level now, which is not super common with U.S. sport climbing. So
totally agreed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's on another dimension planet from what I can even fathom. I think 15B for him now is
like doable.
Pretty kind of consistently
like
doable,
in the wheelhouse. Yeah, I find him to be the most inspiring American sport climber in a lot of ways because I think he's had a really like linear progression that's involved a lot of hard work. He didn't, just start out as one of these like gym comp kid kind of people with a ton of talent and then just sort of ride that, coast on that wave. It's been like working hard and he's really like consistently leveled up, which is super impressive. And just the volume of routes that he does is also super cool. You don't really see that amongst the high-end sport climbers in the US. So.
Yeah, and a lot of his routes just he just does them and he moves on to the next. And you're, like when you start looking at his tick list, you're like, oh, and he did that, and he did that.
Yeah.
It's more and more impressive the more you learn about his journey. Yeah, it's great. Well, this is a great place to start because you didn't start as a gym rat. You have a you have a different history. Could you give us the 3 to 5 minute overview of starting on the East Coast, how you were exposed to climbing, and then sort of a quick, background a little bit. I mean, I don't want you to skip over, like, I know, you did some really heady, impressive things in the Alpine, especially on the Eiger. That was to me, that's a really scary, I believe you soloed it, on site, like things like that. So yeah, maybe if you could just sort of carry us through what that progression looked like.
Yeah, I'll give you my rock climbing journey more so than alpine climbing, which is like I started out, top roping 5.6s in New England. I was a bike racer growing up. So when I came to climbing, I had quite possibly the worst build you could have as a rock climber. It's like all legs and no upper body. I could probably do one pull up when I was in high school, maybe. So I was terrible when I started climbing. But in a weird way, it made it really attractive because it was like challenging right from the get-go, and I could see progress, and it was just kind of like awe-inspiring to me.
That's cool.
But I didn't really get to climb that much growing up in New England. I went to a boarding school for bike racing and ski racing in high school, so I didn't have access most of the year. And then New England weather and all those things. And there weren't climbing gyms in the 90s like there are now in New England. So I didn't really start rock climbing in earnest until I went to school at CU in Boulder. And then I sort of realized, I can go rock climbing all the time.
Yeah.
And started doing it a lot.
So how you're 20 maybe? 19,
yeah, I was
20?
like 18 when I moved to Boulder.
Yeah.
But also the other piece of the story is that my dad was a climber in the 50s and early 60s. And so I had some like very traditional influence from him. So like if I would tell him I'd fall off a route, he would be like, "Oh, it's way too hard. You need to climb something easier." Dangerous, because
back off, Josh.
Yeah, he'd been a climber at the time when like you didn't fall.
Yeah,
kind of thing. Like he told me in his entire 20 years of climbing, he fell twice.
Wild.
Which is totally different than how we climb today. It's rare that I go out climbing for a day and don't fall twice, like in a session. So anyway, so I kind of like approach climbing from very incremental, like do all the 5.9s in Eldo, do all the 5.10s in Eldo, like slow building up, mostly on-site, mostly traditional stuff, not sport climbing. And that was really my rock climbing progression up until like 2004. And then I moved to rifle after college with my wife. And as well as anybody living, rifle is not a place where you go on-siting and climb easy routes. So I basically had to learn how to become a sport climber when I moved to rifle. And so that helped me level up a bit and kind of like learn the rock climbing game. And then around 2009, I started doing the Ouray Ice Comp.
I remember.
And ironically, that was when I like learned to train, kind of, because I wanted to do well in the comp. So I sort of learned to train for climbing objectives and saw that really pay off in my rock climbing. And then sort of started to build my rock climbing, like get better rock climbing from there. 2014, my daughter was born. So I started spending more time at home, less time alpine climbing, and like focusing more on technical objectives. And then sort of just like continue to sort of grind away at improving over the years. So.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate all of that. One quick question. I want to get into some specific stuff, but currently, or over the last, let's call it 5 to 10 years since your daughter's been born, how have you juggled training for rock climbing and then staying cardio fit and leg fit for a lot of the bigger stuff that you also want to do? Like, how do you juggle that? Is it seasonal, or do you just mix it all together every month, every week, a little by little? Like,
I would say it's mostly seasonal. For me, I think with my big aerobic base from growing up bike racing and stuff, I haven't felt like that's never felt like the challenge for me, the aerobic piece of alpine climbing. But that said, I think just like in general, moving more and doing more long days whether that's long routes or crags with long approaches, is really useful going into alpine trips. So if I have an alpine trip coming up, I'll try to do more of that in the couple months beforehand. And then actually like intentionally step away from some of that when it's like full on performance rock climbing season.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I would assume so because you would just feel tired all the time.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
and not the tired that you want to be.
Yeah, right. It
Yeah,
depends a bit on the crag too. Like, I mean, some crags, I think it makes a difference to have some aerobic fitness. I mean, where you live in Canmore, a lot of your approaches are super long. So if
totally.
you're really out of shape, that's not going to pay off very well. But so you have some level of base aerobic fitness just to get to and from the crag.
That's true. But
Mm-hmm.
from my experience anyway, when you do those longer hikes, sometimes hour 45-minute approach, you're not getting in 10 pitches a day. You're doing you're doing like
Yeah.
three hard
Mm-hmm.
ones and a warm up, and then you're hiking back down again. Um,
Yeah.
so it does kind of balance out at the end of the day, but it is a different kind of fitness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So okay, great. So I mean, yeah, you've also done a lot of scary climbing, like North Twin, for example. I just
Mm-hmm.
want to hear a little bit about what draws you a little to that type of climbing.
Um, yeah, I think that like the traditional influence from my dad and how I started climbing.
Okay.
Um, you know, I kind of approached climbing like from the start as this idea like being a good climber meant being good at everything, whether that was like bouldering or sport climbing or trad climbing or long routes or mountaineering. So I was always kind of drawn to all the different types of climbing. And so something like the Twin is just, the epitome of, I guess, adventure rock climbing in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. But I've always done a little bit of everything. And I think that was like way more common in the 90s, early 2000s when I started climbing than it is now,
Yeah,
just because most
I felt that
people,
too.
yeah, I think most people like get into climbing through the climbing gym now, which kind of directs them towards bouldering or sport climbing. And then if they do branch out, it's like they're sort of going off the normal path. Whereas before it was the normal path involved all the different things, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, good answer. I mean, the things that you've done, they're big and impressive, and they're just beautiful, right? But then like, I think a lot of people who are drawn to mountains want to go climb something like that. I know
Mm-hmm.
that like if it was safe, I would want to go climb that or safer. But then there's a big difference between being drawn to it and wanting to do it, and then actually going to do it and knowing that there are higher hazard like things that you can't control. Um,
Yeah.
and personally, that's sort of where I get stuck is like when I can't control the snow, the conditions, the rock fall, that type of stuff, I start to feel that's when I get a little bit more overwhelmed and then I back off because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
whereas like typically on things like El Cap, which I know you've been climbed on many times, typically even though it's a big objective, there's still so much more the variables you can control so much more. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us feel more comfortable in that terrain. I guess I'm just curious, knowing the hazards, what is it a little bit inside of you that's like, I still want to go do that? I'm like, I just love
I,
to explore that a little bit.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'll say first, it's good instinct that you are against going after those objectively dangerous things. You should stick with that. um, I so I think that there's like risk is different for everyone to some degree. It's a really personal choice. And I think with age, I actually take way less risk and do way less climbing like the North Twin, like free soloing the Eiger than I used to in my younger years. I think that's a lot of that is just like getting older and wiser. Um, and you start to like question, is it worth it? Is it worth it to take these risks?
Mhm.
So, and I kind of see risk like kind of a bank account, like you make withdrawals in your life and you should be careful about how many withdrawals you're making so you don't wind up in the red. I think when I was younger, I used to make withdrawals way more frequently. Now I do it very infrequently, and I do it like sort of things that I think, okay, this is something that's really inspiring me for some reason, whether it's like the objectives like super challenging, super beautiful, like the partner's amazing. But I make that decision like once or twice a year versus like a dozen times a year, like I used to. So that's kind of just shifted a lot. And, those decisions, you just get a bit wiser with age about deciding whether something's like objectively hazardous or subjectively hazardous, so.
No, cool. I think that's very fair and well explained.
Yeah.
Thanks for
I
that.
think the other thing too that people sometimes overestimate with alpine climbing and some of these more like adventurous, dangerous things is that it's not actually like you're on death's door at every minute. Like people have this idea that like doing extreme alpine climbing is like super sketchy all the time. And I think it's actually a lot more similar to like highball bouldering, which is mostly like safe, but if you fuck up like in this one section, not good. And that's what alpinism feels like a lot. Like a lot of the times, 95% of your day is totally chill. Yeah. But there are some moments where you're like, oh, I've got to be on my A game here, move quickly, or there is some significant risk. You just sort of make the decision and hopefully you make it like in a way that's a calculated risk and not being reckless. So,
but in that 5%, there's a bit of luck involved
for
as
sure.
well, right?
100%.
Like it's not just your skill or the confidence you have in your own ability. There is a bit of a dice roll there that I personally was starting to get more and more uncomfortable with. And it sounds like you did too. We just have different timelines where, and base level also of risk too. So
yeah,
I appreciate you sharing all that.
I mean, I often talk about risk with people when I'm out like sport climbing. Like I'm the kind of guy who will like stick clip the second bolt all the time, where I'm like, if there's any risk of hitting the ground. So I'm like, I don't want to get hurt. And sport climbing for me is not about risk taking at all. So I'm always the safe one in the situations that seem objectively safe to most people. But I'm kind of saving up my withdrawals for those times when it might not be so safe. So
that's perfect. So today your life is a little bit different because, like you said, you're withdrawing not as many times per year. You're more calculated on what you choose to do, when you do it, and who you do it with. And you're also coaching now for Uphill Athlete. Is that right? Or
no, I actually haven't been doing that much coaching the last couple of years. I'm on their website still, but I haven't been doing that.
Okay. And are you coaching? Like, I know your friends call you.
I coach a few people basically.
Okay.
So people will come to me and I will coach them for a few months for an objective kind of thing, depending if I'm psyched to do it. If what their motivations seem good and I'm interested in what they want to do, then I'll help them.
That's cool.
And write some plans and do that. So, but I'm considering moving into coaching either for Uphill or someone else, or maybe on my own more full time here in the soon. We'll see.
Cool. Okay. So what I would love to know in the, time remaining here is I want to start sort of big picture. Like, what does your year typically look like today? What and then go a little bit narrower, like what do your seasons look like, what do your weeks look like, and then what do your days look like if you're training or rock climbing, and what that ratio, what you try to do for that ratio of training to actually rock climbing. And so we're kind of broad, and then we're getting narrow and more focused, and then the really specific things are, what are you doing today that maybe you didn't do before, what's working, and what have you stopped doing maybe that you just didn't, and like with all the new information out there, technology and stuff, like have you up to some of those things, and I'll kind of go work with you on this as we're getting more significant.
Well, maybe something that you don't know is that like 3 years ago I started working with Maddie Cope at Lattice, getting coaching from her, and cool. And I started to do that because I had been self-coached and training myself for years, and was just finding, like, as I was getting older, that I was like feeling injured and tweaked a lot. Because my style of training had been very aggressive. Like I just hit it really hard,
Right.
basically.
Well, I
um,
think we're all feeling that.
yeah. And so I kind of wanted someone to like basically other ideas and someone to reel me in and make me healthier in some ways.
Awesome.
And I also just didn't have as many close to home projects. So I needed to be like kind of more efficient with my time when I would go away from home to try projects. Um, so I wanted to be like better prepared, more of like a periodized approach.
Right.
But it still kind of follows a general, from sort of your big picture to small picture idea. Like the big picture is generally kind of summer and winter are training focused. And then fall and spring are like step away from the training a little bit and try to send whatever it might be or do whatever it might be. Um, and that just really revolves around the conditions essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Winter time, I might be getting out climbing outside like 1 or 2 days a week versus spring and fall getting out climbing maybe like 3 or 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Um, and the training becomes more like maintenance style
Mm-hmm.
versus like sort of focused. I think the number one thing I see with people who are getting into training or trying to think about training is like um, this idea that you have to accept some reduced performance at the crag to train properly. Climbers were really performance oriented. We really want to like run our PR every day, swim our PR every day at the cliff. Not very practice oriented. Um, Not very, good at stepping back and seeing the big picture. So I think like the number one thing people can do is kind of like step away from that mindset and think, okay, the next 3 months is focused on training and improving, but I'm gonna suck a little more when I go to the cliff. I'm gonna be tired. I'm
Totally.
not gonna send my hardest route, that kind of thing. So
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the winter then, as we're
mm-hmm.
narrowing, because we can talk about techniques for rock climbing all day, but what does your winter periodization look like? How do you structure it? And then
So I tend to like and I sort of did this before I was working with Maddie as well. I'll
Mhm.
tend to do sort of like a 3 week block at home of training with a bit of climbing outside, and then do a quote unquote deload week, which is like a trip somewhere for a week or 10 days where I'll
Right.
just go climbing. Um, and that seems to be really good for motivation as well as for training. And I
Cool.
will say that like organizing it that way, if you climb too much or go too hard on your trip, you can sort of mess up the deload part of that equation. So you have to be careful there. But that general structure seems to work pretty well, sort of like combining family life and then also like keeping the motivation up and being able to go on trips and things like that. So that's kind of
Awesome.
the pattern I've been following the last few years. So
Cool. So 3 weeks on, kind of 1 week a mixed bag of things. Um, Hopefully rock climbing if you're able to get away on a trip.
mm-hmm.
And in that 3 weeks, what does that look like? If we could narrow it down a little bit, is that
Yeah, so it'll be maybe like 4 days in the garage training. I have like a home wall, and 1 or 2 days outside. One day might be a full day outside. One day might be like a half day outside after some training in the morning. Um, and
it's
sort of
awesome?
like, yeah, the nitty gritty detail of the day to day kind of just depends on the project, what I'm training for.
Mhm.
But then there's always sort of like the basics of, you've got some bouldering in there, you've got some endurance work in there, you've got some like conditioning, those sorts of things. So,
And so are you doing all of those things? Are you
yeah.
sort of methodical about making sure you are addressing all the pillars and not just going in, having a bouldering session, be like, oh, that was fun, and leave? Are you a bit more organized with that?
Yeah, it's definitely way more organized, and it's been way more organized since working with Maddie too. It used to actually be relatively organized, but I would say that I had more of like a focus in those periods. So let's say like if I'd gone down to St. George and tried some power endurance route there, might come home and train for 3 weeks with a real focus on power endurance, and then go back for my next 1 week trip to try to send that route.
Cool.
But with Maddie, there's like, we've kind of gone to way more of like a non-linear periodization model, like a block where you maybe have a focus in that 3 week block over the course of 6 weeks, but you pull back on something like your low end endurance training, but it's still there. It's still there in one session a week. It's not totally gone. And I think that's been really useful in like what I would call raising my floor. So not necessarily raising the ceiling, like climbing harder routes, but making me more consistent through the year. So my lower end performance is like much higher than it used to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Tommy, no, it does for sure. When Tommy and Alex and I were last year started training for this gentleman's race, Alex was kind of like, he's just using this as a proxy to be like just a generally better and stronger climber.
Yeah.
He's like, if I could do a bunch of 8Cs like quickly, he's like,
yeah,
and I felt better and stronger. And so it's just this base level that he was just kind of using it as a trying to get there, as opposed to just focusing on one single objective. It sounds kind of similar to your approach a little bit there.
Yeah.
Raising the floor.
Yeah.
I like that. And so I mean, in a lot of these conversations, the three pillars that keep coming up are, fingers, like arms and shoulders, right? And then core strength. Those are sort of the three. Would you agree with those three? Or are there anything that you've learned, that you might want to throw in that are equally as important? This is beyond like the technical part of climbing. This is just a training aspect. What are the three things that a human body needs to develop to feel more confident?
Yeah. No, I think those are all good. I think maybe the core strength is like misunderstood a little bit, and like people train it in the wrong way, maybe, because it's kind of like creating tension between fingers and toes and things, and also specific to your project and the terrain you're climbing in.
Of course.
Like, like if you're climbing roofs at Potosi, then quote unquote core strength is more important than if you're climbing like vertical routes.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I think the way people, and I'm not sure I have the answer to how, but I think the way people train core needs to be like, I used to do tons of like ab wheels and like epic 8-minute abs kind of sessions and things. And I don't know that that's super effective actually for like climbing training specifically.
So is that one thing that you think you might have scaled back or changed?
Yeah. There's not very much of it in my training now, or as much as there used to be. So, and I don't find it to be a problem. It's not like I'm cutting feet all the time at the wall or on the woody, or like struggling with that.
Do you think climbing on a steeper is enough to build up that core strength for yourself?
Yeah, probably. I think probably like if you do lots of board climbing, it's probably a more effective, more specific core workout than doing a bunch of 8-minute ab type workouts.
Right. Yeah. And so, the point I'm trying to get to when I are understanding people's approach to training is like, if you have a limited amount of time per day or per week or per month, what is the most effective use of that time? Right. And so in your case, the 8-minute abs is like, not the most effective thing. Use of time. Right. Sounds like board climbing is a part of your, can you give us a quick overview of your garage, like what you have access to?
I like to tell people there's no excuses left in my garage. It's pretty sweet. It's like I've got a moon board with LEDs at 40 degrees. I've got a tension board 1 at 40 degrees with LEDs.
Awesome.
I've got a tread wall. I've got a canvas board. I've got a lot of fingerboards. I've got a lot of weights. So I've got everything you need essentially.
Okay, this is great.
Sweet wall. It's very like Eastern European. It's like dirty and grungy in there with lots of chalk dust, like lots of training's gone on in there. It's not sexy looking, but there's everything you need.
You're not vacuuming and power washing your holds every week?
No.
I love it. Reminds me of like the old Rocky films when he was training in Russia, like
yeah, it's got a little bit of that vibe to it for sure. It's like freezing in there in the winter and stuff, but yeah.
Hardcore. Okay, so what do you find yourself using of all these tools? A little bit of everything, or what do you find you're using mostly? What's working for Josh?
I use the boards a lot, and I use the treadwell a lot. I use the fingerboard some, although I've moved more to doing pulls off the ground.
What does that
Like
mean? Pulls off the
like
oh, you
lifting
mean
weight off the ground, yeah, like or doing tin deck,
tin
like
deck.
force
So
pulls.
you've moved more towards that. Would you say like 50-50 hangboard and tin deck? I'm just trying to
I
figure
would
out.
say more like 80-20 tin deck to fingerboarding, less
Okay.
fingerboard. I think that's because like it's just easier to isolate your fingers in that situation, and so you like have less general fatigue that allows you to have more effective board sessions.
Mm. Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So you put
And
the fingerboard, the quote unquote fingerboarding, which
yeah,
often looks like tin deck force pulls, like recruitment kind of stuff or repeaters before whatever you're doing on the boards, like specifically after your fingers. And then your board session's better because your shoulders and things aren't tired. In the
right,
same.
right. But
I think there's
I
also,
mean,
I don't really understand quite yet the differences, but there's also been some research like talking about the difference between passive force and active force with finger strength. So how much
mm,
you can like pull on a hold versus how much you can hang on a hold with your passive structures. And
right,
then actually you want to be like working on your active strength more so than your passive strength.
right,
Um, so
right. So it's enough energy to hang on a hold, but like how much can you actually
yeah,
keep digging, right?
yes,
Yeah. And
entirely.
so how much of your session would you say, okay, so 80-20 tin deck, how much of your session overall is finger work versus board climbing versus other things? If
So
you
maybe
had
like a typical like power session might look like half an hour of warming up and fingerboard stuff, and then an hour of board time.
okay.
Yeah.
And so that's a 90-minute workout. Is that typical for you? Or could you
Yeah,
go?
like generally, I mean, it just kind of depends on like what you want out of the session.
Yeah.
The problem with all these questions is it's always like it depends.
Of course, of course. But what I'm trying to get a picture of is what are people actually doing in their life right now that's working, that they're psyched on. So if you're doing 5 90-minute sessions versus 2 3 hour sessions a week, those are
Yeah.
totally different. Like Bill Ramsey had this thing where once he got warmed up, he could train for like 4 hours, but then he would take like 3 days, 4 days rest. And so
Yeah.
that's one approach, right? Because as we get
Hmm.
older, it's harder for us to warm up properly where we can have full capacity.
Yeah.
As you're not in your 20s. So what I'm trying to get an understanding of is who's doing what and why, you know.
Yeah.
And I hear
Yeah.
what you're saying. It depends.
I think that there are lots of different approaches and that there's like a bunch of different ways to go about it, honestly.
But what's
Uh,
Josh doing
yeah. For me,
specifically?
I like to climb too much. So if I was to do
Yeah.
what Bill did, I would be like super bored. Like taking 3 days off sucks in my mind.
Okay. So
So
so you
who
don't you
knows
don't
whether
take
it's
three
more
days off.
effective? It
So
might
how
be. It
so,
might be more effective, but
so how,
for
how
me, I
many
wouldn't like doing it that way.
So how many
So
days a week are you climbing? If when you're on a 3 week cycle, let's say, how many days a week is that? You said
I would say, yeah, there's probably
4?
like 5 days in there where that's have some training or climbing,
Okay. And
and
then
then
of those
2 days.
five, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and then those 2 days will just be like chilling, going for a hike, stretching, doing family stuff,
Yeah.
you know. But like a training day, like during a heavy training cycle in the winter, might look like 90 minutes of that session I just described of power
Mhm.
workout. And then later, after like a 6 hour break, going out there for another hour of conditioning
Right.
or, maybe a low end endurance fingerboard workout, something like that. So,
Okay. And so conditioning, so is that more climbing or is that more?
that's like weightlifting,
Yeah,
might
might
be
be
small off the
core.
wall core work, things like that.
Okay, awesome. So we've
Active strength.
got 5 minutes left before this thing just shut down on us. So,
Okay.
okay, so this is good. We're getting you're doing your 90-minute workout. You're doing 80% tin deck. You're board climbing for about an hour, 3 days a week, roughly 3 to 4.
Yeah, the board climbing is actually probably like 2 days a week, and then there's other sessions of like treadwall in there.
Right. I was going to say, where does the treadwall fit in?
Yeah, I use it for endurance work and power endurance work. Since I don't have access to a good commercial gym with like a lead wall without driving an hour and a half, the tread wall is super useful for that. So training kind of like longer end endurance or doing power endurance work.
And you have specific routes that you're doing that are taped like on there, or
Yeah.
And how many moves is a power endurance? You know.
Well, power endurance workout might be like 10 to 15 moves. And then some lower range would be like lower range endurance. You'd train like more like 2 minutes on, 1 minute off or something, like sort of like much easier lower end. I think that's the thing I've learned most from working with Maddie at Lattice is that climbers tend to train endurance incorrectly.
Can you
They
explain
tend
that?
to
This is great.
train too much in the power endurance. So climbers tend to think of training endurance like fighting to the death,
Yep.
like
Yeah.
doing laps in the gym kind of thing.
Right.
But if you think about, and this was a good analogy to my cycling background, which you actually do to train endurance, like build capillaries in those muscles, is lots of like low end zone 1, zone 2 training. So like what in
Versus
rock
zone.
zone 3, zone 4, where you're
Got it.
like aggressive. So like think like light jog, fast walking versus like running at pace versus, like
So
10-minute
doing
miles
so
versus
reducing the intensity, but doing more of it
yeah.
more often.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing that's going to build like capillarization in your forearms and things. It's what the Anderson brothers described as arcing, that kind
Right.
of stuff. And that's
Right.
stuff that I barely did any of, outside of just climbing long routes outside
Yeah.
that I've introduced into my training. And I think has been really useful.
Super
Like,
cool.
yeah. And one of the really cool workouts that I got from Maddie that's a way to quantify arcing is doing like fingerboarding repeaters with weight off. So it's like really low intensity fingerboarding where you might do like 25 reps of 7-second hangs
Right.
with, taking like 30 or 40 pounds off, but that kind
Mhm.
of like really low end endurance training. And it's really nice because you can quantify it.
100%. I'm actually with you. I did that for my training last year. I would
Yeah.
actually put my foot on like a ramp,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would start to get low. It was so low that I ended up adding like 5 pounds, 10 pounds on my back, but still
Mm-hmm.
putting my foot on the ramp. And it was measurable, and I started increasing that capacity to dig, relax, dig. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ultimately that's what I needed for the route that I had access to, which was like I needed to be able to do 70 crimp moves in a row without letting go, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to work up to that, and that's exactly what I did. So that's great that you touched on that as like super important.
Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Soul Spray, an all-natural, easy-to-use shoe deodorizer. Get yours today and crush odor and stay fresh. Now, back to the show. Yeah, so we were talking about your current project, which you seem pretty focused on, Grand Old Opry.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you tell us a bit more about like
Yes.
the style and how you're approaching it?
Yeah. So I think I was saying that I first got on it in 2020,
Yep.
pandemic times. It's like a nice wall you can mini track there. And it just felt like impossible to me. Like couldn't do either of the cruxes at all. Was like, this thing is nails. I have no chance. And I've climbed a handful of 8Cs too. So
Could you describe the cruxes? Like, why did they feel so hard?
So the nature of the wall is that it's very sheer and there aren't a lot of footholds.
Right.
So it's like a very monolithic rock with like very specific footholds. And both of the cruxes involve like feet in really high positions that don't fit me. I have long legs. I'm kind of a taller climber. And I'm also not very flexible. So basically, I just couldn't get into the boxes that are what most people do. And that was like about hip turnout and about having long legs. And so, like, ostensibly, you would think the route's my style, being like technical, slightly overhanging, kind of an old trad dads type route. But it just didn't really work. I couldn't do the moves. I'd say the first boulder problem on it's like old school V7 or 8, and the second boulder problems on it's like old school V8 kind of thing. So they're like proper boulders, you know, like super technical small hold climbing. And yeah, it just didn't fit me. And I was like, to do this route, this route feels impossible to me, but to do it, I'm going to have to be a better climber and level up in a way that I hadn't for other hard, you know, quote unquote hard routes. So it was less about the grade and more about, like, you know, as you were saying about Alex, like just trying to improve generally. And I knew to do that this route, I would have to be better in a lot of elements. So I sort of like started picking away at it, started making that a focus, working with Maddie. And then so in 2023, I actually got very close. I hung it a couple of times, some overlaps. Then last year I took the year off to kind of focus on some other things, some other goals. And then this year, kind of that was the focus of the winter again. And I've only had 3 sessions this spring, but it's feeling good. Like I feel like I have a chance now, which is a crazy place to be from, like feeling like I couldn't even do the route at all. Like couldn't do some moves on it, you know?
Totally. Yeah. I had a similar experience with my route last year, where when I first started touching it, I was like, there's just no way that, because you need to be able to rest on some of these edges and recover. And I was falling off of them as I was like, like, that's like off the dog. Like it felt like everything was a fingerboard workout. And, but I kind of approached it similar to you a little bit. Like I started getting very specific, like with what I needed to do in order to unlock that. I'm wondering, with your training, are you hitting any, like, are there any measurable things that you're doing that's like, I know I've got a personal best with this or with this, and therefore it's translating? Is there anything going on there for you?
With this one, it's been like more holistic. Like I feel like I've had to improve kind of some of those metrics across the board. I did build, probably the most ridiculous thing I did was build a replica of the route on my treadwall. And when I say I built a replica on my treadwall, I mean I wrapped down the wall with a tape measure and tape measured the distance, spent like 5 hours tape measuring the distance of every hold.
And then you would draw it out, like
I like wrote it all down on my phone.
Cool.
Like, you know, going down tape measure, like, you know, 18 inches down, 18 inches left, like super anal crazy, and built that on my treadwall. And that's been like game changing, because basically I arrive at the route, I can like practice on the route without having to be at the wall. So during the winter, you know, doing replica sessions.
You gotta really want it when you're doing that, which I think is cool. Like people have been doing this for, you know, decades, right? Like to some degree. Maybe it's getting more well known and more popular now, especially with this, like, you know, Burden of Dreams replica thing. But I do think people have been recreating and mimicking for a while now, and it just really shows like a passion for something. Like like, I really want this, and this is what I'm willing to do.
Yeah,
to for sure. It, you know, it's so cool.
So like totally ridiculous. You feel I was out there like in midwinter, like totally ridiculous, and big down jacket, like measuring this climb, and then trying to. It's actually quite tricky to do. I feel like it's easier with a boulder problem because there's only a handful of holds and moves.
Sure.
But with like
when you're linking
60 move sport route, it's like kind of complicated.
Wait, so you did like 60 moves? It's all
I built the route. It's the whole route.
Oh, it's not just like a section.
No, it's the whole route.
Oh, this is definitely another level of
it doesn't have like the 7A outro, you know, 511 section, but I'm pretty confident about that.
Holy moly. So you, how many times will you repeat that on your tread wall in a session?
I've never fully sent the replica.
Perfect.
It's like hard, like the real thing. So, cool. But I can like do reps on the cruxes. I've like done overlaps, things like that. It's a little bit interesting because my tread wall is 20 degrees overhanging and the real thing's 10 degrees overhanging. So
can't you adjust it?
In my garage, my tread wall can't go like more because of my ceiling than that.
Oh, okay. You're gonna have to dig it out, dude. Like bust up the concrete.
That'll be next. I guess that'll be this summer if I don't set in the spring. But so like the handholds on the replica are like slightly bigger than the real thing, and it has a slightly different pump to it than the real thing does. But it's very close. I found that like the most, maybe from less from the physical aspect, but more from like the coordination aspect, the replica is really important. Like it gives you an advantage when you get on the real thing of time, of like, I've rehearsed this so much that I know exactly where my foot goes after I hit this handhold. So there's never any like delay. You know that feeling you get when you've worked on a route a lot where you're like, I know this route and I'm just flowing up it and there's no thought, like just the body moves. Like you get that kind of rep from doing the replica. That's actually kind of hard to get at the monastery because the holds are like small and tweaky and it's a little skin unfriendly. So you can't like just do like huge amounts of laps every day you're out there. So it's been super useful for that. Like I went back, like came back to the route and was immediately like linking all the sections and climbing it well.
Super cool. Do you think that when you can do it on your tread wall, that like that's the period, like you will be able to do it? Do you feel like they're that close?
Yeah, which I'm like really close. Like I could do it any session on the tread wall, and I feel like I could do it any session on the real thing too, actually. So.
Super cool. I do have a similar kind of experience last year where I knew that I needed to hit 70 repetitions, like finger repetitions, without loss of power, or like I just needed that resistance. And so that's what I spent 3 months working up to it. And the day that I hit my like personal target in the gym of 70 reps with a bit of weight, I sent like within 2 weeks of doing that. And it was just interesting how the math, like it equated, it worked, and like, because when I started, I was hitting like 40 reps and then I worked up to 50. And then I would go and fall off the route. And then I'd go up, work up to 60. And then I'd go and fall off. And I swear the day I hit 70, that is like within 10 days, I think I sent the route. And it was just so cool, that experience. I don't know if I've ever been that specific in my training before to something that I really wanted to do. And it's really cool. Do you think that comes with our age and experience, or like what we have access to, or and how our life is? Or do you think that like, do you think it's something you would have done as a 20-year-old, Josh? Or is this like
No, and I think it would be a mistake to do it as a 20-year-old.
Okay.
I actually think that like you have to get more specific. I think it's like ridiculous to assume that in your 40s you're going to have peak athletic performance. You're just not going to be like as strong or as pliable or the athlete that you were in your 20s and 30s. Like you can't defy nature. I watch a lot of like mainstream sports, so I get a lot of insight into like what goes on into professional sports and like listen to sports radio and all those things. And, in mainstream professional sports where there's big money and real athletes, like they talk about you're on the wrong side of 30 all the time. In climbing, we don't like to do that because it's like a lifestyle sport to a lot of degrees and stuff. But the reality is that's just like father time. So I think the bigger your training history and the longer you've been climbing and the older you are, the more specific your approach to a goal has to be. Not to say that the general stuff should go away, but there has to be some level of specificity. Whereas if you're new to training, like you can kind of throw anything at the chalkboard and it'll stick. Like you throw anything systematic and it's likely to help you. And a more general approach is much better. But I think, for like a guy like you, a guy like me who's been like trying things for 20 years, training for 20 years, you're not going to just like pull levers randomly and improve wildly physically. So like that kind of specificity is super important. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That is a great place to leave this conversation. I
right on.
appreciate your time and your patience.
Sure, man.
And I know people are gonna get stuff from this, little tidbits here and there, or the full package. A lot of people relate to, struggling with kids and time management and 2-3 trips a year and just trying to figure it out. So I'm hoping to share insight to everybody. So thank you very much, Josh. You are awesome. Good luck with your project. I hope you have what you said,
you too.
6 to 8 weeks of good weather coming up.
I hope so. Hope for some cool temps. 50s is what I want. 50s and light wind.
All right. Beautiful. Well,
sweet, man.
Keep us posted.
Take it easy, Sonnie. Tell the fam I said hi.
Likewise. Take care, man.
Right.
Have a good one.
Later.